that that just goes into like what I thought comics would be at the beginning when I was just starting out. I thought like, oh, I'm just gonna sit here and I'm gonna draw, and then somebody else is gonna take the pages away, and then they're gonna market it and sell it, and then I'll get movie deals and cartoon deals and all that kind of stuff, and then I would just make all this money, and all I'd have to do is just bleed on the page, just be creative, and I wouldn't
Yeah.
have to do anything. But reality is disappointing.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Comics Grind. I am one of your hosts, Nico Rodriguez.
And I'm Ken, aka Comic Ken on YouTube.
And welcome back to another weekly comics discussion. Honestly, I've been chomping at the bits for this one because this was a article that came out a week ago at the
Yeah, I
time of
think
this
so.
recording. So Ken, I think we should just go ahead and jump into the main topic, into the main article for this week. You guys know we've been working on comics. We've been doing our stuff throughout the week. We'll have
Yep.
maybe some more updates and stuff for you next week and all, but this one we kind of just want to go ahead and jump in to the main topic at hand. Um,
Yep.
sound sound good, Ken?
Yeah, that works for me. I got nothing going on anyway.
Come on, man. You're a busy man. Um, so I'm gonna go ahead and share this thing here. So our kind of main topic and main discussion for this week is regarding this article that came out last week. To be specific, came out on September 7th. It's called "A Survivor's Guide to Being a Working Comic Book Creator." The feature was done by Joseph Illidge. Um, so this is kind of something that I came across. I apologize if my dog is barking downstairs, by the way, because I don't know how loud he is. Is he loud, Ken?
I barely hear him. I only heard like
Okay.
I thought it was some squeaks or something.
Okay. Good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Dogs going off,
Yep.
but he's probably so excited about this article. That's that's what it is.
Yeah, of course.
Um.
That's what it is.
So yeah. So this article I came across, and I think Ken, you came across it the same day. It's basically Joseph's kind of more or less dissection of kind of the current state of working as working comic book creator, freelance type of person.
Yeah.
Um, and he kind of goes, um, you know, goes. He's you
He
can
goes
tell he's
hard.
got some. Yeah, he goes hard, man. He's got some emotion behind some of these words that he's putting down in the article.
Right.
But I think let's go ahead and Ken, let's go ahead and just kind of start off kind of like a quick kind of walkthrough of this article.
Yeah.
So kind of the main thing that Joseph starts out with here is this kind of like page rate economy within the comic book industry, current times. Um, and he kind of goes through a little bit of the actual numbers, which I found to be pretty interesting. Um, Ken, like right there, what kind of anything there kind of uh comes off to you as like pretty striking, or was it kind of within like the typical page rates you would assume that a modern comic artist, writer, designer would get paid?
Nothing on this level like really struck me as anything out of the ordinary or anything that I haven't heard of before. I
Mhm.
don't really the only page rate that I would get is for the coloring that I do. So
Mhm.
um my coloring rates go from like low to medium. So
Mhm.
that's because I'm just starting out as a comic book colorist.
Right.
That's the rates right here. But that's the only thing I know because I don't do any penciling or inking on comics. So it's just I only know the colors end of it.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think I do like that he kind of broke it down. He broke it down between writers, artists, basically meaning pencil and inking your work, comic book letterers, colorists, and because I haven't seen it um, broken down in the way that he's got low, medium, high, and stratosphere.
Uh huh.
which is pretty cool. And it,
Yeah, I like the
bank
stratosphere thing.
yeah, and like and that's what that was kind of like one of the first things that jumped out at me when I was reading. I was like, who's in that stratosphere? you know,
Right.
like Alan Moore type level stuff. That's the
It would have to
if
be somebody whose name is known among other comic book creators,
yeah.
like in a general sense.
Yeah, and just like looking at like the writer portion, like dude, if you're at a state where your comic book writing is getting you $500 a page, damn, because honestly, when you're a writer, you can write some pages in like under 30 minutes, So
Yeah.
if that's a potential like say you write 2 pages in an hour, which might be a little long, dude. You could bank freaking $1,000 an hour, if you're in the stratosphere. Pretty wild, Obviously, that's like very rare exceptions, but
Right, which
um,
makes me wonder what kind of a writer would get that kind of page rate, and would a writer like that even need a page rate if they're stratosphere level? You know what I mean? Like, um, say like like first person that comes to mind is Mark Millar, who does who does a whole bunch of comics. He has his own like wing in Netflix these days, and it's like, okay, well, like what did he like? I guess he had to work his way through the ranks to get to the point where he's in that stratosphere level, but he's like even beyond that to
mhm.
where his work just um makes its money back on its own.
Yeah. I mean, a guy like him, he's got like that draw within his name that he doesn't. He can you know, suffice, 6 months of just writing himself without getting like a page rate. And then once the
Right.
book comes out, he can get, his funding through that case. So it's pretty interesting, man. So I like that, so he kind of goes through and just breaks down, each of those things. You got your letterers there. Um Man, being a full-time letterer would be tough because
Yeah.
those page rates are not super high. I mean, obviously if you're I know a guy like Clayton Cowles, he's a full-time letterer, and he's like on, I want to say, like 10 to 15 to maybe even like 20 different DC books or something like that at a time.
Clayton
Um
Cowles, you said?
yeah, Clayton Cowles, he's like one of the ones that full-time letterer guys that I know that's doing lettering specifically. But it's you see these page rates, and even in the stratosphere level, you've got 40 bucks a page,
God
in terms
damn.
of lettering. So
Uh-huh.
with that, you kind of need to have like quantity, right? You need to have like 5 to 10 books, uh,
Yeah.
going
You
at a
got to
time.
be busting those things out, and that's your full-time job, and you eat, breathe and sleep letters,
Yeah, dude, I don't
and
I
you
don't
got
know
to
how
be
you
good at it.
here's the one thing with lettering, and we can maybe go more into these different kind of titles, at later episodes and stuff. But like the thing
Uh-huh.
with lettering that's kind of interesting to me is like, if you got like templates down that like
Uh-huh.
work really well, you almost have like this thing where you've got like a model kind of all these like different, bubbles and tails and fonts and everything already lined up for your books.
Right.
So like I wonder how much you can just have like that as like a bank that you go to for every project to like speed
Yeah.
up speed up your process real quickly.
Yeah,
So
letters
like
have
that's
that for sure.
yeah, that's kind of interesting to me. And obviously it's evolved so much since where we were before like digital lettering and stuff, because before you had to like handwrite everything, but now you just can potentially have these templates where you can just go through and like knock these books out.
Yeah. Like you can just
So,
put it in there, and basically this is something that they told me that they do is they just copy and paste the script into the boxes.
Yeah, yeah, because then I'm pretty sure it usually goes back to the writer to do like another pass. So like if there's any grammatical mistakes or anything, the writer would kind of catch that. So yeah, it's
Right.
almost like it's kind of it's kind of mechanical. If you're a full-time letterer, it's kind of like that mechanical side of things, which is
Yeah.
hey, I guess it's sustainable, but
There's an art to it for sure.
yeah,
But it's like the artist who's drawing the book has to leave space for the letterer. Then the letterer has to like make sure every speech balloon is like in order and not covering up the important bits of art. And they kind of have to make that decision where like if the artist didn't leave space for it, they're gonna have to cover up like details. Like there could have been like some important plot relevant detail on this guy's arm right here.
hmm
Oh,
oh yeah. Let me
yeah,
share.
I'm showing the yeah, there could have been like some kind of important detail on this guy's arm,
hmm
but the lettering it had to cover it because maybe this book's closing was more
Yeah.
important than that. So it's like the decisions are up to them at that point.
Yeah, that's why writers out there, be mindful of the amount of dialogue you have in your script, because if you put big chunks of dialogue in there, not only does it bog down the story, it can also create obstacles for the letterer to not know where to put that those dialogue bubbles.
Especially if the letter is yourself, you know.
Especially if the letter's yourself. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
um
So what else in the article?
Yeah, so like let's kind of keep going through that. So that was kind of just kind of the intro to it, but where it
Yeah.
starts kind of getting even more into the meat and the crux of what Joseph is trying to tell everyone in the article. Let's kind of zoom up a little bit on that. Bef- Before we go down there, let's zoom up just real quick on that graphic there,
Right.
that one there. So that one's it's kind of it compares this recommended page rate guide that came out in 1978.
1978. Yep.
1978, that's freaking almost what 40 years ago.
Yeah.
um and it basically details the recommended rates for each of those positions that he just specified up top for the current market. And man, these rates really do not differ. And honestly, in most cases, they're even more in 1978. I mean, look at that
Yeah.
first one right there. I mean, you've got your artist there making $300 a page.
Right. That's enough to like if you're cranking out pages, you can like support a family on that, you know what I mean? Um
Yeah,
and letters, like they were getting paid stratosphere, like in what would be considered today as stratosphere pay, they were getting paid that as um well, this is all recommended.
yeah, it's
So,
recommended, but I mean, you know, I I don't think that they were outlandish for the time either. Because
right.
this is how it was respected at the time. And the crazy thing, the only one thing there is like the letterer. I kind of understand, like, the letterer back then was writing and drawing all these bubbles. So,
Right.
I that's the one that's a little bit has changed a lot, I think.
Uh-huh.
So that one's kind of hard to kind of correlate. But the seeing like, the writer, $100 a page, the artist, $300 a page, and then you look at the current, rates.
Right.
It's kind of striking, if you haven't seen that graphic before, and you start, looking into those details.
Yeah.
Um, Man, we haven't come very far since 1978 in terms of like the page rate and respectability of these comics creators, which I think is pretty surprising and kind of appalling at some point.
Well, the way I think about it is like that was back when comics were a like one of the main entertainment sources for kids. And that was like when they knew their target market and they were creating for their target audience. and they were buying the books. There was no, I don't think there was any, like, I think video games were in their infancy in 1978. TV was probably the main source of entertainment. Movies, they're just like an evergreen source of entertainment, but it's like there wasn't there was no YouTube or anything splitting people's attention. People didn't have their phones on them like that.
Yeah.
So it was just, hey, comic books, movies, or TV. Like three different places, or radio. You know what I mean? Like there wasn't many different avenues for kids to get their entertainments. But now it's like millions. It's almost
Yeah.
infinite now.
Yeah.
And it's just that I think that's why creators are getting paid less for what they're worth.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, there's so many different media outlets now that
Mm-hmm.
it's unfortunate, but comics have kind of taken a back seat to all that. So,
Yeah.
um, you know, I understand it, but it's still like, damn, somebody who is trying to like make full-time page rate work a real thing. It's tough, man. It's tough, especially if you're starting out and you don't have stratosphere type recognition behind your name.
Right.
It's pretty crazy. But that was a pretty interesting graphic. But then kind of going on from there,
Yep.
Joseph starts, you know, he kind of details a little bit more about like the sustainability of those things. And this is kind of the part of the article where he kind of gets pretty emotional into it, and just his in terms of like what he's writing down there. He's kind of like detailing, oh, can you actually sustain a family like this? Oh, can you afford not having health insurance? Oh, what about retirement? Standards of living, like can you actually survive on these things? Which he's basically like he's asking these rhetorical questions, um because we kind of already know the answer. Like
Yeah,
the
pretty much.
the answers behind are like, no, it would be a miserable life if you do try to do these things on that kind of work. um
Yeah. On a side
but
note, doesn't this look like Seinfeld? It looks like Seinfeld a little bit.
yeah, it does.
This guy in the middle,
Yeah, good point.
but
Thor and Seinfeld just going at it.
just chilling, I guess.
Yeah.
It might be Neil Adams, but I don't know. He looks like Seinfeld.
Yeah, I can see some Seinfeld in there for sure. um
But yeah,
but yeah, so he kind of goes in there, he kind of goes in a little bit. And then he also specifies things like, oh, do you live in the US? If you don't live in the US, something like these kind of page rates might be sustainable because the power of the dollar, is a lot more in other countries. So, he
right,
kind of specifies that he's just kind of like driving the point home, like, hey, these page rates are low. Think about family. Think about, are you able to save money? Think about, are you going to have a 5-day work week? Are you going to have a 7-day work week? How many hours? What is the comparison between the amount of hours you're taking on work and what you're actually getting paid? Because he's
right,
breaks that down a little more. Anywhere from 60 to 105 hours per week. It's not
yep,
just a 9 to 5 type of job. I
right,
think he's
and
just trying to bring these things to light.
yeah, and check it out here. Like, this is one of the culprits right
Yeah.
here. Is like they Webtoons has figured out that kids' attention is mostly on their phones these days, or on their tablets, or on their iPads. And so they're going to be scrolling through, and then they find Tapas, they find Webtoons, and if they find a story they like, they're going to primarily be sharing it through that. It used to be that that manga was like the biggest thing, and you can find it through your computer. And it took them a long time to adapt to getting on the phone. But Webtoons got there first, and now they have full color uh comics basically that you can just scroll through on your phone, and the most popular ones get printed into full on books that you can buy at Walmart. And
Right.
so and they've already got a proven fan base from the internet. So it's like they've take like comics could have done this. They could have figured out a way to do this in America, but they got overtaken completely by webtoons. And I think that's part of the reason why they've lost a lot of, I guess you could say, market share or
Hmm.
attention share in terms of the target demographic, because they're not putting their comics where people are paying attention.
Right. Yeah, and I think it's just kind of ironic how it's like, oh, the the article about like how terrible comics is, and then like they put in like Tapas right there in there, and how
Yeah,
like
right
well
there.
and like how well Tapas does,
Yeah.
um, but so yeah, so that's kind of like the middle portion of this article, as we continue through our kind of walkthrough of this thing.
Mhm.
um some good stuff, some thought thought provoking things that you need that you kind of need to think about, as which I'm sure we all do, right? All of us creators are kind of thinking about the sustainability of the stuff. And like like his last paragraph of that portion, it's like, can you escape the death spiral of diminishing health, the diminishing time you'll have at the apex of your success, and diminishing awareness in a changing landscape of editorial staffing shifts and publishing in which a superhero dog, kids with diaries, and manga are eating your clients' lunch and sales? Like, dude, this guy
Yeah.
is like really trying to just like spark some fire in people.
No, man, he's hammering home the point.
Yeah. Well, no, and that's what I mean. He's really trying to bring that stuff to light. And like trying
Yeah.
to use like verbiage to kind of support his argument.
Yeah. And
But and then
like,
that yeah.
oh, go ahead.
No, it's cool, Ken. Go ahead. I was gonna move on to the next
Oh,
portion.
yeah, I was just saying like yeah, that really hammers home the point. And it's like, you know, actually I don't even know where I was going with it, but we can just move on.
And then so like that kind of takes us down to like the last part of the article. And he kind of, which I thought was probably the most valuable part of this, even though we kind of already know most of this. Well, I mean, Ken and I do. Viewers out there, some of you, maybe some who aren't super in tune with all this stuff.
Uh,
Um, he kind of breaks down these three different like diversified portfolio models for like the modern comics creator. So like he kind of specifies that first one is called diversified model, right? So something
right.
where you're going through, you've got monthly page production, you've got sales of original art, you've got commission artwork for private clients, and you've got prints for online sales and at in-person conventions. Um, and that's kind of like, obviously, that's something that wasn't so prevalent in 78 whenever we saw that graphic. So like this is kind
Yeah.
of like the more modern approach of, hey, you need a diversified portfolio. You need your hand in different baskets. You can't
Right.
just rely on that first one. That monthly page production is only a portion of your living expenses and everything.
Yeah.
You have
It's like,
sales. Go ahead.
I was about to say, it's like you need like multiple income streams to have that kind of full living from comics.
Yeah, exactly. And that's kind of, it's a pretty good, it's a good model. I mean, I think that's probably a model that, Ken and I would probably looking at, if there's, but you're kind of like monthly page production, like what do you think in that, like it's, is it your indie comics? Is it, hired work that you're getting? Um, so like that's the only thing about that model. It's kind of like, okay, that monthly page production, is it just solely things that you're being hired to do, or is that something that, you yourself is drawing, is coloring and all that for like your own projects.
Yeah,
So
the
that's
way I
the
think
one
about
thing
the
I'm looking at.
I was about to say the way I think about the monthly page model is like your guys like Ryan Otley or Nick Patera, um
Your
they're
boy.
probably doing a version of this. Um be because like I know from Nick personally, like he gets lots of commissions from private clients and sells work that way. He also has like prints um made of his older properties. And so you see the same thing with Invincible and with Ryan Otley's work. He has the original art he can sell. He was producing it monthly back when he was like, creating the book. Um and he probably does all the things in this diversified portfolio model. But I think that is for like the old guard, like him. Like
Mhm,
if you're trying to get into comics now, you have to have started like 15 years ago, or 10 years ago or 5 years ago.
mhm.
But these days, or
Right.
for indie comics guys like us, it's going to be a little different.
Yeah, yeah, it's tough because we would love to get like commission artwork and stuff like that, and I'm so happy when I do, but it's tough because like when you're at a show, you're suddenly competing with all the other all stars, and people might be going in there just to get a Daniel Warren Johnson sketch,
Yep.
and once they buy that, they have no more money. They,
Yeah.
they can't come and get smaller guys sketches and stuff. So
Right.
it'd be great, but it's kind of tough. And then he kind of goes down and talks about this binary model, or is that the next one? No, the next one is the community funded portfolio model,
Yeah.
um, which is a pretty interesting one, right? So you get your page rate income. I guess that could be through freelance work or through I guess the income of like your own comic that you've made. Um, and then you've got something like a Patreon, and then something like a Substack newsletter paid subscription, and you're kind of combining those into one. I love that one. I like the sound of that one,
Mhm.
but um getting those Patreon subscribers and people to commit a monthly fee to your work, like that's another can of worms. Trying to get that and understanding how to try to understanding how to get people on board to do that.
Right.
That's something that's always been I've tried to wrap my mind around, but I just don't know how it happens. And I think a lot of it happens too, Ken, like you said earlier with you know, people who are kind of like more if you're already established, right? It's going to be a lot easier for you to get those Patreon subscribers or those, paid subscribers or whatever.
Yeah,
So,
I think the community funded model would be more for guys like us, where we're doing pretty much everything ourselves and we're not working for a page rate. We're working for uh like we're creating our own book and trying to get the same effect as a page rate. But basically we own everything about the book, so it's like our money doesn't go to anywhere else. It doesn't go to any other source above us. It's all coming back to us, but it's like we still have to do the bulk of the marketing, the promotion, and everything else outside of just the creation of the work. And
right.
that that just goes into like what I thought comics would be at the beginning when I was just starting out. I thought like, oh, I'm just gonna sit here and I'm gonna draw, and then somebody else is gonna take the pages away, and then they're gonna market it and sell it, and then eh, I'll get movie deals and cartoon deals and all that kind of stuff, and then I would just make all this money, and all I'd have to do is just bleed on the page, just be creative, and I wouldn't
Yeah.
have to do anything. But reality is disappointing.
And I mean, I think that thought there may have been a lot more. I'm not going to say it's not feasible, but a lot more easily attained, years and years ago because
Right.
there weren't so many people thinking like that, you know?
Yeah.
But now, dude, you just got everybody that wants that. you know, um, everyone out there making a manga, or a comic. Not I'm not, not everyone obviously, but there's tons of people that were like, man, I want to make that manga. Then I get the successful animated show. Then I get the thing, and then,
Yeah.
so it's like that has been such a dream for everybody now. So it's getting harder and harder. But
I think
yeah. Mhm.
it's not just harder and harder, but it's like it's over a longer or extended time frame if you're working on your own. Um Something like Demon Slayer can catch fire in, like, let's say 5 to 7 years, and that's from the inception to the time it gets like an anime and all that, and then it's like boom in the mainstream. But then something like Lackadaisy Cats, or the other one, Has Been Hotel, they started off as like web comics. I think Has Been Hotel started off in various web comics and whatnot, but those were more of a timeline of like 15 years to get to the point where, oh, now it's known, or like now it's more in the mainstream consciousness, or at least in the consciousness of other artists or on YouTube. um and that's just the result of doing the same things but on a longer time frame, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, and that's the other thing, right? You've got so many more people doing it, but that means that there's so many people like giving up too,
Yeah,
So,
exactly. Yeah.
so like you've got maybe 100 people doing it now, but guess what? 60 of those 100 people are going to give up because it's just too hard, or they stop doing it because other things get in the way, life happens, whatever it is. Um,
Yep.
so there's always kind of that thing to kind of think about,
Absolutely, and I think that's why these projects like Lackadaisy win, is because they just kept going when everyone else who was on that same plane, they just quit. They were just like, all right, well, I did one comic, I'm good, I'm done, I'm not gonna do anymore. But Lackadaisy was the one that kept going when everyone just stopped, and they made their money that way. So I think that's the the result of just being there the longest. And that's one of the things that I read in basically almost all the business books that I've checked out, or all the business like tweets that I read. It's like, if you're in the game the longest, that's already criteria enough for success.
Mhm.
Like, most people will just quit or give up, or severely downsize or moderate what they're doing, because they're just like, yeah, it's too much. Or basically all the problems that Joseph Illidge goes over in the article is just like, oh, I have too many medical bills, I can't feasibly keep this up, I'm burnt out, this is too much of a of a hustle, it's too much of a grind to actually keep this up for so many years. But if you can sustain that fire and sustain that relentlessness for decades,
Mhm.
then you reap all the rewards at the end of that time frame, while everyone else is quit, or gone on to other projects, or you know being absorbed into like a animation studio or whatever. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I think there's definitely a lot of good stuff that you said there, man. Because no matter which way you look at it, I think that I think it has to be like the best time in history for indie comics. I mean, because when you think about it, there's just so many different avenues to put your books out now, and
Right.
it's almost like you've seen and you continue to see this kind of like, I won't say like mass exodus, but like there's been this just like entire shift in the market, to being like only strictly kind of DC Marvel stuff, and it's just been steadily and steadily and steadily, even with like the help of the webtoons and everything like that, that the interest for the comics, people who are into comics have kind of like making a pretty good shift to like, hey, we want different stuff.
Yeah.
We want own characters. We don't we're kind of tired of of Batman. We're tired of Spider-Man. We're tired of Superman, Wonder Woman, all these things. Um, so I think I feel like it's going to just get even better and better. Obviously the competition gets jolts up every week. There's more comics coming out. So, but I mean, I think it's a pretty damn good time for indie comics, man.
Yeah, and I would say on that point is I think it's more important now than ever to niche down on the subject matter and the target audience of your comic, because if you're writing for a if you're like, there's an example of a manga that I've read that it's so good, it's on the level it can be on the level of the of what's being published in Shonen Jump or in any other like Japanese manga magazine. And the fact that it's on that level also means that it's being compared to those other works. Like, this guy is creating on at a speed that's higher than most American comics and at a prolific rate, but he's being compared to other like professional manga teams that have like a full staff of assistants helping them out and whatnot.
Hmm.
And
Right.
that's because he's making things on that same genre, on that same level. And so if you wanted to compete with that, you don't try to rise up to that level or try to do something you're not like capable of or even like specifically designed for it, if that makes sense. You want to do something that's so specific to you that you know that there's an audience for, that you can provide for that audience, that something that the guys in Shonen Jump can't do, if
Hmm.
that makes sense. Like, you want to niche down to where you're scratching the itch of a specific audience that only you can do, that only you can produce, that you can make money from marketing towards that audience, if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah, and I mean, I think manga does that best. I don't know a ton of manga, but I know that there's a manga for everything.
Literally
Paper,
everything, yes.
biking, whatever.
Golfing,
Golfing. Yeah, so it's all it's a real good example you bring up there with the kind of niching down is it's an
right.
interesting term. I like it.
Yeah, and it's like it doesn't even have to be good if you niche down. Like,
Right.
if you niche down, it doesn't even have to be that good because it's so specific. It's You're operating in a market of one. And that's a marketing term. I think I got it from Dan Kennedy or some book like that. Is when you're in a market of one, you're the only one. Like, you're the only one who can provide it. You're not in a commodity based business. Like, say like you say like you're selling apples, um and the guy next to you is also selling apples. Well, then the only differentiator is price. So people will just automatically go to the person who's selling their apples at less.
Hmm.
Whereas if you're selling oranges, now you're different. Now you're specifically scratching the need of somebody who needs oranges. And so they're going to forget the Apple guys and they're going to go to you because you're the only one doing that.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah.
Yeah. But kind of branching off of that, I do think it's important to note that like you know, you want to be different. You definitely want to differentiate, but don't differentiate just to differentiate. What I mean by that is
Hmm.
like what you're doing. If you don't
Right.
like making comics about swimming, and if you don't like swimming, don't just do that just to be different because then you're gonna freaking
Yeah.
hate your damn project.
Yep.
So the kind of model that I've taken is like I'm doing exactly what I want. I'm doing the comic that I wanna read,
Right.
and if you're doing that, I think you're niching down to, the people who are on that same kind of interest level, so
Yeah.
that's kind of like that approach that I've taken. But kind of, just kind of capping off this article here. um the kind of last model that Joseph goes through, he talks about this binary model. I don't really understand that one too much. He basically just kind of says monthly page production, um also prints of art created specifically for conventions. Okay, I guess that's
Yeah.
something. I don't know how viable that is, but
Yeah, I didn't get
it's
that one much either.
yeah. He does mention something pretty cool in there about the additional entrepreneurial side of online in real life or pay workshop courses, general creativity outside of of the direct market. I think that's kind of interesting. The courses aspect of it, obviously you have to be at some level to where people will want to take um, lessons from you, but it's,
Right.
once you get to that level, once you get to that notoriety level, that might be a viable thing, and it might just be a creative writing workshop. Maybe not how to draw. You could, talk about how to facilitate your ideas and stuff like that, which could be interesting. That's another kind of avenue there. But
Right.
um, and then he kind of just goes on to talk a little bit more about, thinking about how to survive in the industry. And that kind of just caps it out. And he caps it out on a very dramatic fashion. And I'm gonna go
Yeah.
ahead and read it because I think it's interesting. He's like, um, otherwise, you could find yourself in the twilight years of your career in need of the holy trinity of Kickstarter, GoFundMe, and the Hero Initiative to save you. There's a saying, getting in comics is easy, staying is hard. But the harder thing, the real trick, is surviving comics without ending up on your back with a tire tread across your body and your stomach burst open like roadkill. Mic drop. and that
Right.
and that's how he ends the article. So, um, you know, there's a lot of kind of like escalated verbiage in there. Like I think that last statement, um, there's truth in there. There
Yeah,
really is
there's
truth in
definitely truth
there
in that.
because we do hear about a lot of older creators that have got to the point where, hey man, like I'm not getting hired anymore. I need help me out type of
Yeah.
thing. And I think we've all kind of learned lessons from hearing those stories. And um, guys like in our position are kind of aware of things like that, so we're kind of trying to do things about it. Um,
Right.
and things like that. So there's truth in there. It's also kind of like, damn, that analogy, chest burst open looking like roadkill. That's pretty
Right.
strong words, could
Yeah.
scare some people away.
But I've definitely heard a lot of stories, like horror stories about guys that need like severe medical treatment near the end of their life, and they don't have anything left from all the years they spent in comics. And it's like, is that the fault of comics or the fault of the creator for not like budgeting or saving? Or maybe they just got hit with so many like financial troubles that their income couldn't keep up, or maybe that thing that they thought would be a big hit just didn't hit hard enough, and so they just ended up not succeeding like they thought they would.
Mhm.
And I was always looking at those stories as like, okay, let me just avoid that and then do what the other successful creators are doing.
Yeah.
That's how I've always thought about it. I thought about it like riding a bike, where let me, like, if those successful creators can do it, then I can do it too. I never
Mhm.
even for a moment considered failure or not succeeding or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, those other kind of creators that need the ton of help and everything. Those are kind of like those good cautionary tales for us to know. For us
Yeah.
to kind of study and not do. Um, and I do think that you know as we continue to go, we're gonna learn more. And the thing that they always say about comics is like every person breaks in differently.
Yep.
Once that one way of getting into comics happens, that door closes,
Yep.
and there's a new door that opens. Um, and like you're saying, the successful creators that have done it, they've done it. It's possible. It's certainly possible, but
Yeah.
it's just all about finding that door, man.
And I think like every so they say like every comic book creator breaks in differently, but I think they also succeed differently too. Like in general, the most successful comic artists have diversified portfolios, like he mentioned, where they're making income from different streams of like the projects that they produced in the past, or physical work that they have on them on hand right now, or like prints that they can sell, or stickers, or whatever. um and everyone has a different model that works for them based on their niche or their market, their target. um because
Yep.
some people are on YouTube and some people aren't on YouTube, and they still make the same because they're just good at social media marketing. Or some people aren't on either of those things a lot, and they're just good at the con circuit of
Hmm.
going to different conventions and making their money that way.
Yeah.
And some people don't need to even do either of those that hard, because they have a full-time job that they're making most of their money from, and it just subsidizes their
Yeah.
hobby basically. So like
Hmm.
there's all different types of models for what works for people. um I personally
Hmm.
am just trying to go for, what works as a full-time comic artist. As long as it can get me to draw as much as I want for as long as I want, then I'm going for that pretty much.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And I'm kind of, currently, I'm on that the model that you had just said, kind of where I have the full-time day job that's allowing me to live,
Right.
um, which is, you know, as we think about it, that's like the most important thing. You guys have to take care of yourself. You got to put a roof over your head. You got to eat. And then, I'm super, super, super grateful for that. Um, but you said subsidizing your hobby. Comics is definitely more than a hobby for me. So it's
Right.
subsidizing job two, job
Yeah.
part two.
Yeah.
And that's
Exactly.
kind of how I see it. And when I go to a con that's out of state, it's primarily a business trip. It's a
Yeah.
job. Um, but
Well, actually,
I
I wanted to. Yeah, I just wanted to get into really quick just what Joseph Illidge himself does, um, because he wrote the article. But
yeah,
yeah, I wanted to take a look for a second
yeah, I
at
think
what he
we
does.
go ahead and share that. Yep.
You on the screen now?
Yeah, yeah, it's shared.
Oh, okay, yeah. So he's a writer, editorial director, and thought leader. And thought leader, I think, is like a term for like influencers, pretty much. Like when you are known for a specific thing,
Hmm.
you become a thought leader in that category, and people know you for that, for the ideas that you put out in that regard. And so
Hmm.
I guess it looks like he's following basically what he said in terms of the diversifying his portfolio. He does like
Hmm.
coaching and consultations, which you can definitely make a lot from that. um like video
Yeah.
game companies can reach out to you for writing projects and whatnot.
Right.
Speaking engagements, for sure. If you're a good writer, you can speak well as well. Like he's worked on Batman. He's worked on I guess kids projects. Um, Heavy metal. He's done stuff for Milestone, Lion Forge. So like he has a whole bunch of like clients. He has a whole bunch of avenues to to work. And he's a writer. He's not even an artist in the comics industry.
Hmm.
So it's like he's following his advice. But it's like you can't make a living from comics alone these days. At least that's what it seems like. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Like You can't
Yeah.
just write and draw your own comic and make a living that way, unless maybe you're super prolific, like a manga creator or a webtoon creator, like manhwa.
Yeah, I mean, especially just being a writer, man.
Yeah.
If you're just a writer, I feel like you better learn how to be a damn good public speaker. You better learn how to host panels. You better learn how to,
Do YouTube.
understand YouTubes, things like that. These, it's hard, unless you're like become like you make like a huge breakout novel or something, and then you get like recruited to like write comics or something. I know I've seen that happen a lot. Um,
Yeah. The only
but
writers I
one guy
see,
was
like, they're established, like, like Brian Michael Bendis or Mark Wade, like
right.
they've already made their mark and they're established. But go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, just kind of bouncing off that writer thing. I mean, there's one Tom King he's a
Oh,
big
right.
time DC writer now.
Uh-huh.
Um, so the way he got discovered was he wrote a novel about superheroes,
Oh, wow.
and that fell into the right hands, and then hit everything else is history. But um, so that that's an interesting option for a writer. Write that novel and get discovered. But it's obviously, when that door closes,
Yeah, that door
sometimes
is
those
closed.
yeah.
Nobody else can
So
do that again.
yeah. Um, but one thing I did want to mention is
Yep.
a guy that I've been taking notes from, and um, I met him at Heroes Con and everything too, and I
Uh-huh.
think is a really, really good example of kind of everything we kind of discussed here. Um, Diversifying your model and niching down.
Mhm.
His name is CHRIS SCHWEIZER, artist.
CHRIS SCHWEIZER.
CHRIS SCHWEIZER. He's an artist, cartoonist, cartoony style. But when you use that word niche down, right?
Uh-huh.
You when you look at his setup at a convention, he has niched down. He kind of he's almost got this kind of like lumberjack type of persona. Um
Oh, yeah,
and
take a look at, my
yeah.
screen here.
Yeah, so he's a cartoonist, he does some comics, he does graphic novels, he works with guys like Kyle Starks. They're like best friends, so they do books and stuff together. He's done the Crogan Adventures.
Nice.
Um but So when I say niche down, like he's got a Patreon. For you creators out there, go and take a look at his Patreon and just kind of see what he's doing. Um, he's got so many different levels, print clubs and stuff like that. But he also does like woodworking and stuff. He's got like this, like I
Oh,
said,
wow.
he's got this kind of like very crafty, not crafty, but very like comic artist slash like mountain man type of aura about
Vibe.
himself.
Right.
And he's niched down so much to where he's like doing woodworking and stuff now because that's one of his passions. He's doing like all the cartoonist stuff. He's drawing, doing commissions. You can see there he's got um I feel like I'm showing all my cards here because like this is like a guy that I've been studying like his kind of his portfolio in terms of his Patreon. But he's got commission clubs where you pay monthly and you get certain commissions. And
Right.
he also does this wood like that. For example, there he does like this woodworking stuff where
Wow.
he's like actually like whittling all this stuff, and it's like that's like
Yeah.
a Christmas themed ornament that he's come out with.
That's amazing.
Um, but he's niched himself down, like you said, Ken,
Uh-huh.
to where he's people who are you're not going to find everyone in the world who wants like a wooden figure of one of his art pieces, but there's a kind of like this, like kind of like modernish kind of hipster person in the world would love this type of stuff.
Right.
Um, and it's a really good example of like, hey, he's found his niche and now he's like riding that thing home, and he's got a really cool Patreon with really interesting levels. Um,
Yeah.
so I think he's one really cool guy to kind of study, and look at what he's doing, maybe implement some of that stuff into your business. Also, he's a freaking awesome dude, super nice.
Right.
So that goes a long way too.
Yeah, I've seen Krogan Adventures in libraries and whatnot. And I think that's just he found this over time. Like he was able to see, he was able to get real time market feedback. He wasn't taking it like secondhand from a publisher or whatever. He was like getting it
Mhm.
firsthand and knowing like, hey, more people want to see stuff about like woodworking and the things that I like that I'm passionate about.
Yeah.
And work, and he can now work that into his business model.
Yeah, and it's kind of the cool thing that I'm kind of always thinking about too. It's he started off with like that one project, right? I think I think Crogan Adventures is like his first thing. I think, but I'm gonna go ahead and
I don't think so.
say that you don't think so. Okay,
I would just be guessing if I said that. Yeah.
okay. So well, let's whatever he did, whatever was his first graphic novel,
Yeah.
right? He put that out. Put all his blood, sweat, and tears into that, and then like built around it. I feel like
Right.
built that
Yeah.
around his style, kind of built from there, and then like all these other things kind of like seamlessly fit in a weird way.
Yeah.
Um, so I think that that's one thing for like the creators and the viewers out there who are watching this, and us too, to think about. It's like you know make that project, dedicate your time to that project. When you've got that one book or whatever it is to fall back on, it's like you've always got that one kind of central core to your business.
Yeah.
And then from there you can kind of branch off. Oh, you did like a cartoony style graphic novel. From there you branch off to like drawing cartoony commissions. From there you branch off to like maybe doing short little animations. Um,
Right.
you know, but you always have like that core thing to fall back on, which I think is kind of important. And I think
Yeah.
I think I think CHRIS SCHWEIZER is kind of like the good a very good example of that.
Yeah, and I like the idea of like having that core piece of media that you make, and then building around that, building your brand around that. Because I feel like Brian Lee O'Malley has done the same thing with Scott
Mm,
Pilgrim,
yeah,
and
great
he's been
example.
like keeping that candle burning for over a decade now. And now they got a new anime coming out, and it looks fucking awesome. I wish
It
I
does look good.
still like
I,
I'm gonna watch that. I'm not in the target demographic anymore. I'm kind of over that over the hill for Scott Pilgrim, but I'm gonna watch it because I loved it so much growing up, and
yeah,
I'm gonna
I'm that's
enjoy it.
actually what I'm interested in too, and I'm gonna check it out for sure. I'm
Yeah,
I'm hoping I relate to it because like it might be like young, you know, too kind of young adult for me maybe, but
yeah, probably will. It's like too young even for me. So
yeah.
I was the target demographic um in the time that I read it, and I would just ate up everything about it, and I was just like, yeah, I love this. But I think I'm too like a little too old for it now, so I'm gonna enjoy it on an artistic level, just like, hey, he
Yeah.
actually got it done. And I was gonna say about Chris Schweizer is like, I think what also helped is that he made the his brand about more than just his book. He made it about
Mhm.
himself and what he likes. And so
Yep.
people were able to like have more than just cool looking artwork to latch on to. It was like, hey, there's also this guy, he likes this kind of stuff that I like, and
It's
and
that's exactly it, man. That's exactly it. Because
and
the Go
just
ahead.
really quick, like even if not everybody in the world knows him, even if he's not the biggest on Instagram, he has his people. Like he has his
Yeah.
tribe basically. And they're for him and what he likes.
No, and that's exactly it, the modern hip guy who drinks IPAs is gonna love his shit because he just has, like, that sensibility about him. I don't know, there's just
Yeah.
something, and you feel it. If you ever see him at a convention, you'll see it because his setup is just, like, so, um, in tune with that
Yeah.
kind of sensibility.
That's all branding and marketing. He really like leans into it, so because he knows who he is and he knows what he makes his stuff for. And
Yeah.
that's really all there is to marketing. That's the basics of it. Know who you're making things for, and then lean into that. But that takes time to find out um who those people are and what you can feasibly do to lean into it. But it's basically just like being yourself publicly.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure, man. I think that's kind of a good spot to end this one, Ken. I think we
Yeah.
kind of went through the article. Thanks so much for joining in on this episode, kind of our walkthrough of the Creator Survival Guide, run through, and then a little bit of elaboration on that. But what we really want to know is we want to know what you guys think of this article. We'll probably go ahead and link this article in the description of the video, so you guys can click it, read along with us, check it out, and let us know what you think about it. What kind of validity does it have? Are there models in there that you kind of prefer and maybe lean more towards? Let us know down in the comments. We definitely love to hear it. And maybe we can think of another episode from the comments that you guys leave down there.
Yeah.
But other than that, Ken, where can the good people out there find you? Where can they read Air Rider?
Everyone can find me on Twitter or X at @Ken, and you can find me at on Instagram pretty much every day at Ken. And then you can read Air Rider High School Hero on Global Comics at the moment. Sometime next year, I'll have a full website out for it.
Awesome. Also get ready for that Air Rider Netflix anime that's coming out soon, right, Ken?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, it's coming out. Pretty soon. Yep.
Pretty soon. It's coming. And you guys can find me at Nico_Writes on Instagram and on X. You can also find me on Substack at nicorodriguez.substack.com, where I post my update newsletters, things like that. You can subscribe for 100% free, and you get some pretty cool exclusive content over there on Substack. But other than that, guys, thank you so much for watching, and we will see you next time.
Peace.